Hi. So today I am talking with Jim McClean, who is over in Belfast. In fact, he is our second Belfastian, as rather cutely named by one of my offspring, when Jim was here for a gig a couple of years ago. So, Jim, what I want you to tell us first is, when did you first become an artist?
Ah, to be honest, I can't really remember a time when I wasn't creative at some point. I wrote quite a lot when I was a child. As I got older, I drifted away from that. I learned to play guitar when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and started veering more towards producing music and stuff at that point. Um, so I don't know when I would actually have described myself as an artist as such. But it would probably be going back quite a long time.
Of course, I'm not going to ask you how old you are. Um,
Yeah.
So, so you started off. I mean, you wrote as a child poetry, then moved into playing guitar and a bit of songwriting. I mean, can you identify at what point you started to call yourself a disabled artist?
Well, I was aware of my disability, I suppose, in my sort of maybe 30s. So going back maybe 10, 15 years is when I would have identified as someone with a disability who was creative. And in relation to disabled arts, engaging with organizations and stuff like that, I think that was probably about going back roughly 10 years when I made contact with places like Arts Disability Forum and some of the Drake Music Collaborative over here and stuff, and various different organizations that I linked into then, sort of around about maybe 2011, 2012.
You've mentioned that you a songwriter and play guitar, but I understand that that's not the only art form that you do. So, what other kind of art do you take part in?
I do a lot of, uh, I've written a lot of poetry. I've written books of short stories. So, yeah, fiction writing, poetry. I've done a bit of comic art for various festival, sort of small festival venues, and sort of performing arts where I would get into character and do like I did a Burns night where I performed as Robbie Burns. Um, I've done I did a word book day where I dressed up as Willy Wonka and drove a carriage up the main road to the local library and did a performance there for the kids, which was wonderful. And I enjoyed that. And we did the whole there's no simple way of knowing which way we are going from the movie. So they enjoyed that very much. So I've done that sort of thing where I've dressed in character and did a performance, or maybe read a little bit from a book, or uh, performance poetry and that sort of thing. So I've enjoyed doing that sort of thing in the past.
I also understand, I mean, talking of characters, that you certainly have had the character of the Cosmic Nomad. Is the Cosmic Nomad still around? And who is the Cosmic Nomad?
Um, yes, Cosmic Nomad was actually that's it. You can see that, I'm not sure, but that was the name of my first CD that I put together in the studio, and so I think the character came off of that, and when we went to perform the songs, then I sort of fell into that characterization. So then when I went to sort of write songs after that, quite often they would have a kind of a cosmic sort of a vibe, because that was the direction I went with initially.
Brilliant. Very David Bowie. That's what I like to think. So,
Mm.
what are you doing now, and what are your plans for, this post-pandemic period, really?
I'm not really sure. I mean, what I find is that I've drifted away from I still do a bit of writing, and I have done a little bit of music, but I've kind of drifted away from the scene, if you understand what I'm saying. I'm not engaging as much with other artists, and obviously there haven't been any events or festivals or gigs or something or anything happening in a while. And also with my disability, um, my health has been lower in more recent times than it had been a while, go back to 3 or 4 years ago. So that sort of leaves me sometimes a little bit isolated. But I also, and sometimes it does go for better creativity. So in relation to where I'm going, I actually can't answer that directly because I'm not actually sure where I'm going to be with my health. And also I'm not quite sure what the art scene is going to be at the end of all this, because things are only really starting to open up here again. Venues are only just opening up, so I don't know what direction that's going to take.
No, I guess none of us do. Well, hopefully, I mean, with all the arrows that you've got in your quiver, I think that you can definitely fire them at different quarters of the arts world as things open up again and kind of get enthused yourself. To close then, I'd really like you just to read as one of your poems.
This is called a train. I am on a train. I am on a train of thought, rolling along the rickety tracks more powerful than a juggernaut. There are passengers on this train. They push and shove and fight for space, never settle down, for the same destination bound, to cause commotion, to cause turmoil, to cause this poor old train to turn around. Concern and confusion, an obnoxious pair, always fight for space, each his own opinion to air. Confusion's muddled expression distorting the reality of every situation. Wiry hair and wonky teeth, he's large enough to occupy 2 seats. Concern is too uptight to sit down, always dresses the same, in grey and in brown. His downtrodden demeanour he wears like a crown, jittery, highly strung, and easily wound. Then comes the decorative and slender lady, always flicking her hair fresh as a daisy, and sure of herself as she enjoys the ride, because this bold beauty, her name is Pride. Presenting as pompous as the gent she travels with as much baggage as he can possibly lift, taking up more space with possessions than anyone should need, because this clumsy passenger, his name is Greed. Then there's the kid with the shiny, happy face, always jumping up and down, running all over the place, or launching random objects, fascinated at where they might land, carrying a tin of Red Bull in his tiny schoolboy hands. He wears t-shirt and shorts, even in the rain, surprising other characters because excitement is his name. A fancy attaché case and the businessman's gleam is all the fullness of the executive appeal, always reading, typing, texting, keeping busy. His name is Opportunity. He's always at the ready. But one thing I always notice, whether cruising or travelling full pelt, full of passengers or by oneself, this train, though always homeward bound, never seems to stop. More often crammed with passengers and never room enough. I wish it would just slow down because I'm feeling rather rough. This train is making me dizzy. I really must get off.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.